mobile apps have a causal impact on shopper behavior. So let me ask you this. How many of you use a mobile app? Okay. How many of you have ever shopped using a mobile app? Not bad. So typically when I ask audiences this question, I do see a lot of hands go up. But when we try and dig deeper into, is that really changing the way you shop? We don't have that much clarity, which is where this project fits in. And the motivation going back comes from a personal experience. Before I started my doctoral, I was the co-founder of a retail startup. This is actually a picture from our store. And even though we were a physical space selling musical instruments through a 2,000 square footage store, much of our business was coming through online and mobile channels. And 2 or 3 things became clear to me in that experience. First was the importance of omnichannel. The second was, if you want big impact, get high tech. So anecdotally, I saw a lot of evidence for it. And the third one, I'm going to hold off till the end. You can unlock it by sitting through this. So hopefully the context is simple enough to understand. We are talking about omnichannel, a shopper that is surrounded by a variety of touch points and is being constantly communicated to by brands that want to reach out to this consumer. However, within omnichannel, mobile is expanding. You know what has become extinct? Our good friend, the landline. And you know what else has become invisible? People's faces. So I think that points to the increasing impact that mobile has. And within mobile, you will see the shopping journey getting more and more influenced. So I'm not the only person saying this. This is Macy's CEO, Terry Lundgren, who talks about how people today start their journey with their phones. Then they may go online and buy, or they may buy in store. Increasingly, we see though that mobile is being dominated by mobile apps. Out of the total digital time spent, 54% of it goes into mobile apps. And that comes out to be about 90% of total users' mobile time. Not only that, we see that within mobile apps and browsers, users tend to spend more time in their top apps compared to what they do in their top mobile websites. Of course, we see that these kinds of charts have a great impact on people from the industry and everybody gets super excited. However, we see that only 3% of the time spent in app is actually going into retail apps. So there's a huge window of opportunity where retailers can actually grow engagement. And apps are a great way to do that because apps offer a number of features that traditionally websites haven't offered. For example, the store locator. So I'm a customer, I need to go buy a dress for the conference. I can just simply go to the store near me and I don't have to wait for it. So similarly, products. You can look at the product catalog in a more engaging way. These are some of the features that we will dig through deeper to uncover the mechanisms of what is driving the impact. In terms of literature, since this is an early emerging area, there's been a little work, but we go much beyond it to say that what is the causal effect of mobile apps on net monetary value of purchases and where is that impact coming from? Is it that people are buying more often? Is it that people are starting to buy more expensive items, so they're buying much more every time they buy? Where is that effect coming from? So those are 2 of the key points, and we do that in an omni-channel context. Specifically, as you might have already figured it out, we are going to look at the causal effect of mobile app adoption on purchase incidents, returns incidents, as well as conditional on buying and returning, is there a change in the monetary value? The second thing that we do, because it's an empirical, theory-driven empirical paper, we look at the sizes of differences. Is it really worth it? Because apps don't come for free. I mean, some of the retailers I've been talking to, they spend $200,000 just building the first round of their app. And on top of that, analytics and just integrating the organization, it's an expensive proposition. Finally, we look at which app features have the greatest impact, which is where the real insights on shopper experience comes from. So how do we do it? Conceptually, we map a shopper's journey from whether that person adopts or does not adopt an app, to how it affects their purchase and returns behavior. So it's a simple framework, 3 key decisions that we map, and we test it in a natural experiment by using data from an omnichannel retailer. So I'll show you a little bit more about how we answer these questions. So we've partnered with an omnichannel retailer of video games, so it is more of shopping for games and not gaming to shop. And the data that I will show you today is focused more on the video games category. And we have panel data running from July 2014, when they launched an app, till about 72 weeks after, as well as we observe their individual level transactions. What the unique part about this data that lets us do is it's the mobile app usage data. So every single feature that they click in the app is mapped, and where they are and how they use it. So this is the natural experiment that we are going to be leveraging. The intervention that happens is that the app is launched, then some existing shoppers may adopt, some may not adopt. That's why endogeneity becomes a big problem for a causal project like this, and I'll talk a little bit about it in detail. So here's just to give you a sense of the data, we look at 1 month before and 1 month after app adoption. I know it's a lot to look at, so I'll briefly point you to some of the key statistics here. First is that in this sample, the sales overall are going up. And our interest lies in seeing, is it happening because of people who adopted the app, or is it more because of those who did not? And as you would expect, the dark bars, which refer to the adopters, they're seeing a rise over the same period that the non-adopters are actually seeing a fall. And the only difference between pre and post is the intervention, which is the app. So we make sure that these two groups are similar on everything else. And we do that using propensity score matching and a difference in differences model, which I'll explain next. So just to get a sense of the summary statistics, and we see the same pattern for incidents of buying. Those who adopt the app buy more often as compared to those who don't. Interestingly, in both of these, the returns are also going up. So what's not clear is the net impact. Maybe mobile app adopters, because of the convenience and connectedness of the app, are more prone to returning the products too. In which case, does it make sense? So I'll quickly show you the methods, but not spend that much time on it. We first model the decision whether to adopt an app or not. And based on that, we find for each person who adopts the app, a suitable match of a comparable person who does not adopt the app, so that their outcomes are more comparable. And we don't end up comparing apples to oranges. And finally, what we do differently is also not just look at their averages or outcomes in terms of are they spending more or less, but also through our Tobit type 2 model, the idea is to break down that effect. Conditional on buying, are they buying more or not? And so these are some of the models that we've worked on. Difference in differences, the simple approach here is that we would ideally like to give Toby, for example, an app. And if I give him a mobile app, I want to be able to observe his outcomes when he uses an app versus when he doesn't use an app. But the idea is I want to do it at the same period of time. However, we only observe one, so one of the two outcomes. So the whole idea behind diff is to find a counterfactual, which gives you a nice set of comparison group and takes care of a lot of things. So intuitively, if S1, S2 here, the line on the bottom, if that's something that is observed for the control group, you can sort of use it as a counterfactual for the treated and extract your causal effect. And that ensures that nothing else is affecting them over the period of time. So that's just the intuition behind the models that we do. We also have a Tobit type 2 model, like I said. And apart from making sure that these models are capturing the essence of the effects that we want to examine, we also do a series of robustness checks, because this effect need not be driven only by one element, which is app adoption, but there could be a lot of alternative explanations. So through these series of tests, what we find is that we can rule out a lot of the potential explanations that could contaminate the causal effect. For instance, we check, is this effect being driven by high spenders or low spenders? And when we rule out the possibility of outliers, we find that the effects are still consistent. Similarly, one could argue that only deal-prone customers use an app, so then there's no benefit for my profitability. And what we did in this test is we took out all of the people who used deals ever in the pre-period, and we find that the estimates still hold, although they are slightly smaller. I'll show you those numbers in a little bit, but this is just to get an idea of how we take care of self-selection, because one can argue that people who adopt the app end up buying more anyway. Okay, the exciting stuff, hopefully. In terms of app adoption, as expected, we find younger people, men, because I suppose this is more of a video game category, are more likely to adopt an app. Also, people who are already enrolled in the loyalty program, they tend to adopt the app more, as well as people who are online buyers, they're more tech savvy or they're more interested in the app. So this is some of the intuition behind the decision to adopt and start using an app. And then, like I briefly talked about, when we compare them before matching on their similar characteristics such as age or gender or past buying behavior, they're fairly different from each other. So the group on top is app adopters, the group at the bottom is non-adopters, and you'll see that they're very, very different from each other. But after matching, this is just to show the strength of the matches we find to make sure that our design is valid. We find that they're fairly similar. Okay, so what is your intuition? Do people who use an app buy more? Raise your hand if you think yes. Okay, no surprises there, they do. And most of it is significant. The net monetary value is higher too. However, what's interesting is that even when you exclude the top spenders in the second column after my highlight, you will see that the effect actually goes up. So low spenders are probably buying more as a result of using the app. Similarly, you find that even after you exclude the offer users, it's not just the deals that are making them buy more. There's more to the story. And finally, when we look at our breakdown of effects, we find that indeed, app users are buying 50% more often than those who don't. However, what is counterintuitive here, at least to me, was that they're not necessarily spending more each time they buy. So it is not as if they're either starting to buy more expensive products or expand their budget too much, but they're just finding it more convenient to buy as they go. And finally, we see that the returns also go up by about 30%.
Oh, wow.
However, there is no effect on returns amount. So that is just the probability of making a return. And possibly, our hypothesis is that these results could be driven by 2 or 3 explanations. One is that they're just buying more, so they may return more. The second is that maybe they're buying more impulsively, and so later there's some kind of distributivity from purchase. And the third possibility could be that maybe they're more socially connected in general, because they're app users, so they might be using a lot of other social media type of apps. And so after they buy, they go through some discomfort, or they get exposed to some information on social media that this product was probably not a good purchase, especially for products like video games. So what do these imply? Just a crude estimate of averages, you will see that returns as well as purchases go up. As a result, net monetary value is going up effectively by about 70 to 20%. So overall, there is a positive effect, at least in the short run. So those are our key findings. What is more interesting to me is what is going on in the app that is causing this. So we've established a set of causal estimates, but what really is going on in the app? So our next set of analysis shows which features are more likely to be more correlated to outcomes. And so there we look at what are people doing in the app. And one thing that we find is by popularity of features, you see a lot of product related involvement. People want to know product details, or they want to do product searches. So in this case, we also find a lot of loyalty program related engagement. So typically we see searching for what are my reward points, or what am I going to gain, how can I spend these reward points. So those are two key features that are being used more by shoppers. However, are they really making a difference for the retailer? Because if you think about it, each feature is a cost to the company. And so, again, a little bit of dense numbers here, but what you see is that product and store related features which let you do both. So either it could be scan a barcode of a product and find it in the store, or it could be things like check availability of a product in store. So those features are driving the impact more compared to some of the store-only features, for example, check-ins, which in our case, there's no strong case for it. However, it's interesting to note that some other features are also having an impact on returns. And my intuition is that offers and loyalty program-related benefits that people buy using, that might lead to a cognitive dissonance later on, where they feel like, oh my God, that was a great offer, I bought it, but I probably didn't need it. And they might go back and return it. So that's sort of where our thinking is right now, and we are digging deeper into the mobile app usage data. Churn and dropout that you brought on early was also a big thing that we noticed in the data. By the second month, a lot of the app users just drop out, close to 50%. So that's another story we're digging out of this and what it can mean for managers. Finally, why are those dancing? So here what I show is that a lot of the times retailer go through this thinking that let's do an all-in-one app. Let's build as many features as we can, because tomorrow our customers are going to come to us and ask for them anyway. So there's this general thinking more features is better. So here what we find in our scatter plot is somewhat of an inverted U-shaped pattern. And what's happening is people who use more and more features do not necessarily experience higher outcomes. And there could be two potential explanations. Again, one is it's just information overload. You're giving them just too much to look at. Or the second explanation could also be that all of these features are making people focus too much on the device and not so much the ability to make decisions and think of what actions they would possibly take based on what they're experiencing. So that's where our thinking is right now. And we see the similar but weaker pattern for returns. Okay, so what do we take away from today's talk? Hopefully some interesting insights. The first question we set out to answer is, does mobile app adoption lead to higher purchase incidents? We find that indeed it does. But each time people go and buy, they do not necessarily buy more. Does it lead to higher returns? Counterintuitively, it does. 30% higher, but no significant return amount. And finally, what happens to the net monetary value of purchases? We feel that there is a benefit associated. And where is it coming from? More action-oriented features in the app, whether it is product in store, whether it is offers. And finally, one takeaway is that it is not necessarily good to overload your app with features, but be more selective, be more thoughtful. And for me, this fits into a broader set of, just to summarize the results. For me, this fits into a broader conversation about omnichannel and mobile. I know I promised you I'll tell you the third piece of what I learned from my startup story. And the third piece, what we also talked about in the morning, was the integration issues. How do you make this mobile mind shift a part of your organization? So not to see it as a marketing effort or as a technology effort, but how do you create organization-wide disciplined approaches? That's sort of the big picture question that we hope our research will also be able to contribute to.